Most people take for granted they can live personally rewarding lives, choosing where to work, what movies to watch, who to have as friends, even what to have for dinner. Not everyone, however, enjoys this kind of personal freedom, nor the control to make even the simplest of choices. Not long ago, a decision was made to assist the people living at the Embreeville Center to develop their own fulfilling lives, just like ours, filled with choices and new ways of working and recreating. It would ultimately redefine not only how these former residents and staff members experience the world, but sometimes even how they perceive themselves.
I just came out Embreeville in 1993. Now I have my own apartment. I love my job, and the job that I do is go out to visit people in their homes.
I used to work at Embreeville, but right now I work for the Office of Mental Retardation. I love it, and the good news is I get to see people that I used to work with at Embreeville.
My son Julian used to live in Embreville. Now he's in Germantown in Philadelphia in a group home where he has his own room and lots of new friends, and is quite happy with his life.
Out of a deep commitment to seeing every Pennsylvanian live an everyday life, a lawsuit was initiated in 1994 that resulted in the closing of the Embreville State Center. This is the story of that closing and the extraordinary initiative and cooperation that ensured its success. While each person was unique, there was nothing terribly unique about the situation or challenges at Embreville. Only everyday people like you and me, families, advocates, state, county, and human service workers, empowered by the shared belief that every human being, regardless of their challenges, is equally deserving of the world's bounty and blessing.
I have to pinch myself. You know, it was not always peaches and cream. There were times when it was difficult and the way was hard, and we did feel oft times as though we wanted to give up, but we stuck with it, and everything has turned out beautifully.
When we heard Embreville was going to be shut down, we were shocked and angry.
Well, to go from the known to the unknown was a great problem, and I knew it would be for him. He'd had some difficult experiences in the past, and it was hard to make the adjustment, but he did make the adjustment, and I think he's doing pretty well.
It was a very hard decision for everybody at Embreeville, because they came from a place that they knew, that they had a sense of security in, and they really were faced with the unknown of moving into a community program, of having to believe and trust in people that they didn't have relationships with.
Leaving the familiar can make some people feel very anxious and very vulnerable. And so when it was announced that Embreville was closing, it was understandable that people were going to be uncomfortable and be concerned about the change.
Well, you must understand that when it became clear that Embreville was going to close, everyone was anxious, but especially the families. Here, they depended on Embreville for decades, in many cases, to be taking care of their relative. And in a lot of cases, the families were very supportive of what kinds of supports, what kinds of care Embreville was giving their relative, and they felt that their relative was very safe and secure in the situation. Parents embraced the security and valued the guarantee of uninterrupted, continual care for a lifetime if necessary. In reality, what better choices did they have?
When John's parents heard that Embreville was closing, they were very concerned about John because he's in a wheelchair. They don't know how they were going to take care of him.
When we heard that Embreville was closing, we were very concerned because we were not sure about the future of his new setting. What about the new providers if they were to lose contracts? What about the funding if they were to be discontinued? What will happen to him? And these and other concerns worried us very much.
Change is always hard. All of us know how traumatic it can be to have your life disrupted by unexpected forces. Many former residents had concerns.
I listened to you about leaving Embreeville, but I wasn't sure who was going to take care of me.
I was afraid to leave Embreeville. I didn't want to leave my friends.
The staff at Embreville also had legitimate concerns.
As a former staff member at Embreville, I was very concerned about the intense behavioral and extraordinary medical needs of some of the individuals who lived there and how they were going to be served in the community.
I was very worried about where my income was coming from. How would I provide for my child and myself? So finding a job was very important to me.
It's important to remember that people who work in large state institutions such as Embreeville and Penhurst, in many cases, several generations have worked at these centers or work there at the one time. So loss of the job, loss of their life is a very difficult thing for them to deal with.
When you're helping people get lives, you're going to discover challenges that you didn't anticipate. And each time, this group of people dug in deeper, discovered a solution, and found a solution that was durable.
The reason Embreville's closing worked is because there was a connected purpose and an urgency that compelled everybody to work together as closely as possible. Everybody was part of the solution.
No one wants to go to court, and the enormous success of Embreeville's closing proves that you don't have to. Yes, it took months and months of negotiation and determination to find an ideal home for each person, but we did it. Together, we have made a wonderful life for each of the men and women who used to live at Embreville Center. Today, they're living in their own homes. They sleep in on Saturday morning, invite Mom over for dinner. They're getting to know their neighbors and becoming members of church congregations. They're doing all the wonderful things that are part of everyday living.
These scenes don't look too terribly remarkable until you look at what they came from.
In 1993, the Federal Department of Justice filed suit in Pennsylvania against Embreville Center. They were enjoined with Pennsylvania Protection and Advocacy, Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Citizens, and PEER, which was the family organization at Embreville Center. These four groups collectively believed that the individuals served at Embreville Center would be better served in the community, where they could get more integrated services, better recreational services, and work opportunities. It was said that they were incapable, even inhuman.
Chocolate is my favorite.
I guess incapable is in the eye of the beholder.
It was an incredible privilege to serve as the Embreeville monitor. What was really important in the settlement agreement was how each party made a strong commitment at the beginning of the settlement agreement and didn't waver. They committed to solving problems at the table. We discussed our problems. And while the technical details of the settlement agreement are in the accompanying manual, what's not truly captured are the long meetings where we talked about and we resolved the differences so that we could meet not only the spirit of the settlement agreement, but produce the kinds of lives that when we set up the settlement agreement, we had hoped for. And we've achieved that.
As a result of the Embreville Settlement Agreement language, we are able to use documents to ensure that each and every class member gets what they asked for, because they were given choices of where to live, how they wanted to live, what they wanted to do. We are able to almost enforce that happens by relaying information to the county and the state and the parties and resolving issues as quickly as possible before their grievances.
The extraordinary thing about the Embreville negotiations, which is very different from other cases in which we've represented the plaintiffs around the country, is that both the state and the plaintiffs shared a set of common values, a very deep commitment to the principle that all people with disabilities can live in the community and share places with people without disabilities.
Embreville worked because families, lawyers, staff members, and advocates were all committed to the same end, and all were willing to stick with it, in particular involving family members who are so frequently left out. because they were able to stick with it, we avoided years of litigation that would have taken money away from the system rather than giving money to the system.
We all have problems in our lives and homes, and all systems have different types of problems. And I don't want to misguide anyone, but there are problems in communities, and we work together as a team to resolve those problems, and we will continue to do that. And all of the parties are cooperative in that effort.
I think what's significant in looking at transitions such as that in Embreeville is the fact that in the last 2 decades, Pennsylvania has developed the capacity to serve people with very significant disabilities in the community, including people with complex medical needs and complex behavioral needs.
The one thing that keeps shining through our success in the closure of Embreeville Center was family involvement. It was important that the initial contact came from a family member. I had a sister at Embreeville, and I knew exactly how they felt. I mean, I feel like she is my child. Each person deserves a customized solution.
Everyone, regardless of disability, has dreams and preferences and aspirations, just as we all do. This is how the person-centered planning process works. We started with each person and found out what was most important to them, and then tried to plan to get them what they wanted in their lives.
The way the process is set up is the people that are closest to the person help the person plan to move. So in some cases, it was a staff person who was with them every day, who had known them for years, or it might have been close family. In many cases, it was close family. It might have been someone in housekeeping that they hung out with during the day. It was a person in maintenance, sometimes the facility director. And those people were the people that helped the person plan to move, the people that were closest to them.
Even for people that couldn't speak and people who had real serious, severe disabilities, there was always someone, either their family or a staff person who knew them at Embreeville, who knew that person and knew what was important to them.
We didn't plan for a group of people, we planned one person at a time.
Deb and Alan are 2 people where there is no compromise when it comes to supporting people with disabilities. The work that they did to learn what was important to each person often meant that they had to find people who had already left Embreville, staff who had already left Embreville, to try to find those people who had the connections, who had the knowledge, who had the love. Essential lifestyle planning is a wonderful tool, but like any tool, it can be used with or without passion. When it's used with passion, then the plans become alive. Then what happens with people becomes magic.
Part of the real success of this story is families reaching out to each other, reaching out to cousins and grandmothers and uncles and aunts and everybody being involved and making this a success.
The family members have served a very powerful role in changing the outcomes of people's lives, and have built in the kinds of probably supports that we hadn't figured out yet, but we now have as a result of having them so deeply involved in the process.
Once we realized that Embreville was going to close, and we talked to many other parents, we realized there are risks in every aspect, whether he remained here or go to urban living. Now that we have seen his new experiences, we wish he had been settled in that way much earlier.
Sybil and I fell in love with each other, and we have adopted each other. Preparing for her to come to my home, we had to remodel it. And in doing this remodeling, Sybil took part in that. Joe was so eager to have independence of his own, and he wanted to be independent, to do things on his own. So we as a family got together, and instead of placing him into a group home, we discussed it with the family, and my sister agreed to have him to come live with her.
There was one woman whose mom and sister wanted her to come and live with them, but she used a wheelchair and their home could not accommodate her. So the county arranged to buy the woman who lived at Embreville a home, and her mom and sister moved in with her.
And became the family living provider.
At the beginning of the process, there were about 250 individuals who lived at Embreville. And gradually, over a 6-year period, all of those individuals were placed. And during that transition, we had to maintain a professional environment where the individuals that remained there throughout the process were well taken care of. And during that time, Bill Snoffer was there supporting us and providing us the kind of inspiration that we needed to do that.
My son Mark was the last one to leave Embreeville, and the quality of service they gave him, the attention that was given to him through all the personnel, is just something that we just rejoiced about. It was so pleasant to have people care for him as they did.
What I liked about the transitioning process is that I got to put input, to make some input into things, because I knew these individuals before they left. So I felt as though I contributed to their placement, where they were going and what they were doing.
Once you look beyond the contributions and critical nature of each family and the individuals in this process, it's important that you also recognize what the contributions of staff were to making this successful. Not only did the transition process assist personnel with suitable employment elsewhere, several staff members actually took former residents home with them to live with them, and they became professional providers in their own homes. Now they make their living with the same skills and talents as always, only now it's more intimate, more personal, and more respectful.
I think the reason that the transition from Embreeville went so smoothly was because the process took nearly a year, and in that time, Robert and Michael and I got to really know each other. We visited each other at least a couple times a month. I got to know their staff and find out what they liked and didn't like, and their friends, and they got to choose their home and their furniture, and we all became quite good friends by the time they moved out.
What was important about Embreville, we were all in this together. When someone found out about a job, they told another person. We were like a large family. During this very important time, we all stuck together and looked out for each other and worked together in this time of need.
As you know, many parents historically have opposed institutional closures because of fears they have of community placement and problems they might have. What the parents did in this case was to try to deal with those fears by creating a number of safety net mechanisms which parents could use if there was a problem in the community. Thus, we have a safety net written into the agreement where parents who have a problem can go to the court monitor and get the problem resolved. We have monthly meetings where the parties meet and try to resolve problems, and we have a grievance and arbitration mechanism if they can't be resolved that way. This did a lot to resolve those fears so that people felt that their voices would be heard when they were in the community.
The consumer and family satisfaction teams are the natural consequence and complement to a very well laid out plan for the Embreville plaintiffs who have left the institution. Their families worked very hard to ensure that once they left, that their lives would not only be better, but stay better.
Part of the settlement agreement was that people got to select where their relative lived. My aunt and uncle wanted to select Delaware County, a close-by setting where they could visit Mark. But Mark's services would have been better in Philadelphia. So he was moved to Philadelphia, and the agency agreed to chauffeur Mark's parents back and forth to his home, and Mark to our home and his parents' home, making it very easy to visit, and that was a quick solution to a pretty complex problem.
In the end, Embreville's closing wasn't so much about endings as it was and is about beginnings. Beginnings that reflect newfound homes, families, talents, interests, funding, and even providers. Through the tireless efforts of all concerned, bridges between the past and the future have been built that will continue to create new growth and opportunities. Former residents have new lives in the community. Former staff members have new jobs and extended families. The Commonwealth has laid out a 5-year plan, which now provides a roadmap for transferring more people and resources into the community. Even the counties gained insight and experience, as well as new resources for serving people with disabilities. Everywhere you look, there are new jobs, increased capacity, and momentum for the future.
Dorothy's done some amazing things in the past 3.5 years. She works one-on-one with a music therapist once a week and has done so for the past 3.5 years. And through that process has also started volunteering once every 2 weeks, working for a music therapist.
He says, Aunt Bernice, Uncle Hewitt, did you take your medicine today? So he is so much joy and brings so much joy to us in the home and the family. Whatever we are doing, he said, I can do it.
You're never too old to be out in the community. When Helen first left Embreeville, they were fearful that she wouldn't be able to make it in the community, somebody her age. Helen has flowered and blossomed into the biggest, beautiful flower.
He's remarkably very different than when he first moved in. He's become more of a person instead of a problem.
Since I've been taking care of Chris over the last 5 years, he no longer abuses himself with hand biting or ripping his clothes. He works out in the community doing recycling, and he loves horses.
He likes to feed his fish in the aquarium, and every once in a while we'll go out and get a new fish for him.
But he wanted a job in the community. He didn't want to work in a workshop, and it took a long time, but he finally got a perfect job for him. He works at a car wash, and he just adores it.
Look at these 14 employees, just like Mike. Joy to work with. Joy to work with.
Over the past year, I've had a marvelous opportunity to visit most of the people that I worked with while at Embreeville. And on the whole, most everyone is having a wonderful life. The quality of their life is just phenomenal. And the community experience for these individuals has certainly been worth the effort that we went through over those 6 years.
This is my office. I have my computer, my desk, and I enjoy it very much.
I believe Chris is really enjoying his life now.
I'm very happy in my new home. I love my life in my home. I love my job. I'm happy.
Although a termination agreement has yet to be signed, which will ultimately release all parties from legal oversight, it's important to remember that the process of building, caring, protecting, and nurturing will never stop there. There are always ways to grow, and there will always be need for adjustments. But when a transformation like Embreville's is completed with such success, it results in a powerful, almost maternal drive to protect its integrity and ensure its future, regardless of the legal requirements.
And of course, the best part about all of this is that 230 people who were living in an institution are now living out in the community with their family and friends.
I couldn't be more proud of being part of this process along with my staff, and I look in people's eyes and I hear about how they're doing, and I believe that people are happy.
Because it's only natural to cling to what is familiar, bridges to the future are never without challenges. We must recognize that there will always be hurdles and obstacles to overcome. In spite of Embreeville's immense success, our greatest challenge as individuals will be in making certain that our present community-based solutions never stagnate and become the dated institutions of tomorrow. We should always be looking ahead, eagerly and hopefully, for the next bridge to greater growth, respect, and understanding.